Hello and welcome to webinar by MethodsNET that deals with the qualitative data analysis. Today, in our seminar, we are doing something that usually lasts a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, but at the same time, it's something that we can talk in the next 1 hour about and allow ourselves to have some guidances on how to deal with the challenges and practical solutions that we deal with when we want to do good qualitative data work. So my name is Anka Kekez, and today I will be your, in a way, instructor of qualitative data analysis, and I'm doing this also as a instructor for the MethodsNet summer school that takes place this July in Budapest, and it's done in collaboration of MethodsNet and Central European University. And the idea of this seminar is to give you a short, I would say, introduction and short peek into what it is that we're going to do offer in a summer school. But at the same time, I want to provide you with useful enough both informations and ideas that work for itself, even without you joining the summer school. And the whole idea of summer school courses that of course, it is the lapsus linguae, but also lapsus momentum. The summer school does take place in Vienna, which is the headquarters of the Central European University, of course. And what we're going to do today is deal with important issues that qualitative researchers embark when trying to do as good as possible qualitative data analysis. In doing so, what I have done as a preparation for our course is thinking about how to help you organize or think about challenges that you're going to be dealing with or that you are already dealing with when you are doing your qualitative data analysis. I did a systematic review of the literature, but also based on my own research experiences and also teaching experiences, because I've been teaching as the instructor of qualitative data analysis for several years now at the Method School. And what I have found out is that we can actually talk about problems by grouping them into 4 issues that are jeopardizing credibility and dependability of our qualitative research. So we can say, when we are engaging in a qualitative data analysis, with possible 4 sources of doubts. First source of doubt is that we might actually engage in a situation in which we are doing the coding and a data work in which we are not connecting our data work with the research design and the research context that we are actually working that we are doing our research at. I'm going to be very soon talking more into details on each of these 4 issues, but this one is particularly challenging, as it means that we might end up doing data coding and data analysis without connecting that process with our research design or our research question, or anything that in a way alienates our research context, then it needs to be taken into consideration when doing data coding. For example, if we are doing cross-case comparison as a research design, or if we are doing process tracing as a research design, we might need different coding procedures and coding steps than if we are doing descriptive study of illustrative case. So what I'm trying to say, it is important that we think about the way we're going to code the data even before we start collecting it, not to say also start working on it in a sense of analyzing it. And in doing so, it's important that when we're going to start coding our data, that we are able to align it or connect it with our research design. So this is the first problem, and usually this problem, if it's not considered in a proper way, in a proper time, might lead us to coding procedures which will not lead us to good answers to our research questions. I'm going to very soon tell you more about it. But now I want to present other 3 problems that I want to tackle today, and also show you some ways to think about solutions. So second challenge talks about the coding process itself, in which we might, in one hand, have a problem of data overload in situations in which we just are in which we are completely overloaded with the amount and the quality of data that we are not able to see the patterns emerging from there, and it's a very unpleasant situation. And I have to say that I've been in that situation several times in life. It is a situation in which you can even imagine yourself in a very, very red head full of information, in which it becomes really hard to know what goes where, what goes with what. At the same time, on the opposite end, we might end up with using overly rigid application sometimes to prevent data overload. So rigid application of some kind of frameworks in which we are taking data or filtering it in a way that it's actually losing out the meaning which are important, which means that we won't face the overload, but we might face the lack of the informations from our data. And very soon, and today, I will be talking also about ways to deal with this possible challenge. Third challenge talks about ensuring the quality and conclusions of quality and the quality of conclusions and quality of process that we are embarking on. And in that, we need to think about different standards of quality, among which we know about reliability, validity, but also different quality dimensions that we need to, in a way, tangle together with our coding procedures. And then the fourth challenge that we are dealing with when we are doing UDA, it's the issue of making sure that we have good documentation of what we have been doing, so that we are able to not only document, but also to write about the procedure in the methodology part of our papers or PhDs or books, and also that we are able to present our findings in a compelling and effective way. And this is the fourth challenge that usually comes at the end, but we need to think about it from the beginning, because it's important that we make sure that we have tools or tactics that are allowing us to have good documentation of our data. So those are four core challenges that we are dealing with when doing QDA. And for us to have a joyful road of data analysis, but also very successful findings or successful road toward the findings, it's important to deal with those challenges in a timely manner by using whichever resources are available to us. And what I want to give to you now is a way to think about possible solutions toward each of these four core challenges. So let's start. Our first challenge, as I said, talks about placing qualitative data analysis in the overall research process. And what we see here is a road or the process in which research in qualitative world happens. And as you can see, we can divide our work as a qualitative researchers in steps which are well known to researchers. But here it's important that you see that those steps are mutually very integrated, that it's really important to think about data analysis as something that needs to be well aligned with other parts of the research process. And as you can see, data analysis here is 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth box, involving data reduction, data displays, drawing conclusions. But at the same time, it is a process or is the task which is very, very strongly aligned with all the steps that come before and after. Meaning, when we are building conceptual lenses or formulating research questions, we are probably in need to think about how we're going to engage with the data when we get that to get the questions answered well with the data analysis methods and tactics that actually are enable us to answering those questions. So to give a more depth into what I'm saying now, I'm going to even more spell out what this problem means. I call it the problem of the conceptualized collection and analysis of data, analyzing without the context. So we need to choose what is going to be the appropriate approach, what is going to frame our data work. In a sense, we need to answer the question in which we are deciding how tight or loose our study design will be. Prior we go to collect our data, Are we going to focus on a strong theoretical framework, or are we going to be much more inductive? Are we going to use pre-existing conceptualization of phenomena, or are we going to go as far to have hypotheses on what we are looking at, or are we going to try to find the explanation of phenomena to emerge inductively, more grounded? Also, it's important for us to think about what will be the conceptual, the physical boundaries of the phenomena, in a sense, how structured will be the devices for the collection and analysis of the data. These questions are not easy to answer. They usually are something that we do have to answer when we are preparing our research designs or deciding how our research is going to look like. And what it's important and what it is that I want to highlight here is that we need to know how the answers on this question will actually affect the way we analyze our data. What I'm trying to say is that it's almost impossible to disentangle data analysis from the research design. In a sense, it has to be embedded in it so that everything fits together. So we cannot actually think about coding as something that takes place in a distance from the problems or conceptual issues that we are analyzing in relation to data that we are connected. Due to that, and due to the fact that in qualitative world, there are so many ways to approach research questions, to approach research process, to approach data collection process, data work is conducted to numerous distinctive approaches and modes of analysis. So this means that in order for us to avoid data analysis which is taking place out of the needed context, we need to be able to understand in advance what are the possible approaches that we can take as a research design, or also approaches to data coding, and what are the possible modes that can guide our data work. And then based on that knowledge, connect what it is that we have in our research as our primary interest or research question. And in that connection, it's important that we are as critical and as reflective as possible. So sometimes we need to let go some ideas. Sometimes we actually we have to make sure that we learn more on research design before we actually engage in data collection. So this is a rather big problem in a sense of dealing with it, in a sense of us needing to learn. And what I'm going to offer now is a way to think about conceptualization, but it's something that is well addressed during the summer school that MethodsNET offers with the CU, in a sense of allowing you to think about different research designs, such as process tracing, comparable case strategy, ethnographic research, discourse analysis, and so on. And what it is important to think about data analysis as something that comes in the research design. So first, what I'm doing here in front of us is something we could, of course, spend hours and days on. And here I'm just gonna do very, very short introduction into taxonomy offered by Blatter, Haveland, and Van Hulst, in which they are giving us a very, really interesting, I would say, organization of the ways we can think about different research designs. And each of these research designs represents the house of knowledge that we want to inquire in order to deal with them. But what I'm doing here, I'm using this as a starting point to talk about ability of us to engage with the data coding with the different research design strategies. So what we have here is a continuum of different research strategies and research designs, which differ into their in their ontology and epistemology, of course, with a very particular type of strategy, such as comparable case strategy, toward very holistic and coherent type of research strategy, such as contextual analysis. And what we can see here is differentiation between several research designs that is showing us ways in which we can actually help ourselves to find the research design that suits not just our research question the best, but also that will lead our data analysis. For example, if we are engaging in data coding in a research design aligned with the comparable case strategy, which is known to be a strategy that looks for the explanation of phenomena by looking at it as parts making of configuration together. What I'm trying to say, when we are doing cross-case comparison as a research design and answering questions by using this strategy, we are usually looking at the world by seeing it as being constructed of different parts, which we can try to observe or find corresponding elements into our data. And by connecting dots or connecting those parts, we are actually able to find explanations for phenomena or descriptions if need so. And in doing so, when we are doing data collection or data analysis, we are conducting coding, which is then rather structured than unstructured. Or doing the data coding and data analysis that is allowing us to see elements, to see dimensions, and then work with them and compare them in a very structured and I would say a very structured way that allow us to have boundaries between elements and dimensions. On completely opposite side, or the other side of the continuum, we have contextual analysis as a research design, which is looking at the phenomena as a whole, not the phenomena which can be divided in part, but phenomena that can be only looked at as connected and coherent. And in doing so, structured analysis of elements which are then compared is not something that fits well with the contextual analysis. In the slide that I'm now showing and in the picture that is providing the structure of possible, the way the different research designs can be structured, we can then see how different research designs evolve, like comparable case analysis or QCA, which as a research design looks for very structured type data analysis before we actually engage with the different methods of the analysis that QCA involves as a strategy. Also, process tracing as a research method is very interesting in a sense of combining, looking at the parts and looking at in the data patterns, but at the same time looking at the wholeness as something very important. So I'm not gonna at the moment go deeply into any of these methods. It will be ungrateful to them and especially not professional to use too little time for something that takes a lot of time to actually develop well. So what I'm doing, I'm inviting you to either read a source by Blatter, Haveland, and Van Hulst, which is the paper in which they are providing the qualitative methodologies, I would say, taxonomy, but also to try to find out where it is that you are finding yourself as using that methods or strategy to answer your research question, and have that in mind when making choices about data analysis. And very soon, in a few minutes, I will show you how those things relate very directly. At this point, I'm going to leave you with the idea that it's important to be clear about research design that you're going to be using in your data work as a starting point that will allow you to have better reflectiveness and also pragmatic approach in data coding, making choices that will allow you to reach toward the answers of your research questions. So this is pretty much most important thing to highlight when we talk about the need to contextualize our data analysis. And this comes very close to dealing with the challenge number 2. And this challenge talks about data overload and data, I would say, not just overload, but overwhelmed feeling of dealing with analysis as something that is in contrast with the sketchy application of conceptual lenses. Here we are actually dealing with a task of managing, processing, and retrieving qualitative data. So while in the first challenge, we were actually dealing with the task of situating, positioning ourselves, in this challenge, we are finding the best way to engage with the data, manage it, and make it accessible for us and accessible for good conclusions. And here we are dealing with the 2 risks. First risk is a data overload, which kind of comes together with the fact that we are often dealing with multiple data sources. Sometimes we're going to have 300, 200 pages of data interviews, transcripts, or we're going to have 50, 30, 20 documents, which when they come together, they just create big amount of qualitative data. And it's almost impossible sometimes to deal manually with such the collected data, but also it's important to think about the need not to resort to help of different qualitative data analysis softwares such as NVivo, Atlas, but also when we are using softwares to be able to use them in a way which allows us to combine structured or reflexive approach in a manner that will allow us to avoid the risk of data overload, which means that here we need to discuss or decide how soon we need to activate conceptual lenses in our data analysis and how rigid those lenses needs to be in order for us to capture enough, but also not too much from data which is ahead of us. This is one risk. And the second risk is directly connected to it. There's the risk of actually having too tight or sketchy application of conceptual lenses, which means that we have our analytical frameworks or code book sometimes, which is so, I would say, rigid or narrow that it's collecting not all necessary pieces we need from our data. So this means that we are doing analysis, but actually missing what we need to capture in order to actually understand, or we are not getting new or important, innovative insights from the data because we are not allowing them to pass through our filters. So here we talk about the balance. Are we going to use very open or very structured, or how are we going to find balance in between those two ends of continuum in order to actually process the data? And what we are actually finding here as a solution is the need to conduct early and systematic data coding, which means that in many situations, best answer to this challenge is to start data analysis as early as possible, even after first interview, or with the first documents to be collected. And in doing so, we are doing our best to engage in transparent and systematic data reduction, in other words, coding. And it can be inductive and deductive, depending on how we are actually approaching the research. And in that we are actually engaging in systematic interpretation of patterns in the coded data. And here I'm going to make a little pause for us to think about ways to actually do this. So while in qualitative research, we have different strategies to design our research. Some of them I just mentioned by showing you difference between different research methods involving different levels of particularism, holism. But also what we have in qualitative world is also different choice of coding methods, which can fit good or bad or not so good with the different research strategies. Not to be very abstract, I'm going to now give you a little showcase of possible coding strategies that are offered as a possible choices for us to have transparent and systematic data coding. In a course on qualitative data analysis, which takes place in Vienna this summer, I will go through big part of these methods. In daily basis, we will be learning on how to engage with the different coding methods. But here I want to show you the difference between them and tell you that the choice of some of them allows you to do some things, while the choice of some other allows you to do some other things. So, for example, what we have offered, and I'm not giving you the comprehensive list in a sense, there is nothing more than this. There are more options than these 5 that I was able to give at this slide, but those are very widely used across the world. So one very often used is the method of thematic analysis, which is known for its idea or the focus on patterns of the meaning which is in the data. And thematic analysis has been in the world of qualitative data analysis for years now. in a sense that it's very well known, and there are different authors showing us ways to do data analysis. Brown and Clark, for example, are providing us a full roadmap in reflexive thematic analysis. Miles and Huberman are providing us a full roadmap in a codebook thematic analysis. What is important here is that with thematic analysis, we are using or we are choosing methods or steps to code our or analyze our qualitative data in a sense that we are following a route through which we are either coding data in a reflexive thematic analysis in order to emerge or to generate codes, and then after codes, teams and subteams. Or if we are choosing a more structured approach to thematic analysis, we start with a codebook, which sometimes reflects our conceptual framework, or it's created in very open manner, and then we are coding by actually following that codebook and developing it further. Important thing about thematic analysis as a method is that it's trans-theoretical. It's a method that can travel between different, not just theories, but also research designs. It can be used in ethnographic study, but it can also be used in cross-case comparison because it does not involve strong epistemological elements into it by itself. And that's why it's very, very often used. Only it's important to know that at the moment it exists primarily as a hub for different possible paths in coding, and it's important to at the moment distinguish between codebook and reflexive approach to thematic analysis, as either of these two is actually allowing us to connect more with different research strategies. For example, codebook thematic analysis, because it's using codebook as a primary tool throughout the analysis, is very nicely connected with the cross-case comparison as a strategy for research. At the same time, a reflexive thematic analysis is rather much more less structured, and codebook comes as the ending result of the coding process. And due to that, this method is well designed for ethnographic type of studies, or even discursive or contextual types of analysis. What it is important here to understand is that thematic analysis is a method or a strategy for data coding, which allows you very structured steps in which you can approach data work and then align it with the methodology. And it's really important, thematic analysis is answering different questions. So you can use it when you have descriptive question, when you have question in which you are looking for the reasons or why question, or when you are looking for the process, how question, or meaning can also be researched with a thematic analysis. But then it's important to design the process accordingly to your research design. On the other hand, qualitative content analysis is much less trans-theoretical type of data analysis method. It is the method developed by German scholar Margaret Schreier, and it's a method that has very structured road that we usually use to answer the question, what? It's a method that we only use when we are trying to answer descriptive research questions. It's a very interesting method because it's allowing us to analyze big amount of data or qualitative data in very, very systematic and reliable way, allowing a lot of tools for the quality assurance. But it's a method because of some of the important steps and tools that it uses. It's a method that can be only used to answer the question of what it is this phenomena, what are the dimensions that this phenomena consist of, or what are the types of possible phenomena. But we cannot answer the question of why this phenomena emerges or how does it emerge. So it's only created to answer descriptive research questions. And that's why it's important to know from the beginning that we are trying to describe something, we're using then research strategy, which is allowing only description, and in that sense, qualitative content analysis can offer very reliable methods and a path to actually engage in that research. On the other side, grounded theory as a coding strategy is completely different than that. It is the strategy that goes all the way toward finding explanation. It is the method that's going to lead you there, definitely. It's a method that is very much designed to use inductive approach. Unlike qualitative content analysis and thematic, which can be used in inductive and deductive way or in a mixed way, grounded theory can be only used for inductive type of reasoning and inductive type of data analysis. And as a method, it has also very clear steps that are leading you through rigorous and systematic induction. Adaptive coding is also a very emerging method for data analysis, which is focused on the need to actually combine induction and deduction. And there is also a set of authors dealing with this method and showcasing how it can be done in a very systematic way. And discursive analysis as a fifth possible approach to data analysis is, of course, coding process through which we can only look for the meanings, and actually is a type of the strategy that we are looking at when we are actually looking at more holistic research designs. So what I'm doing here, I'm showing you the variety of the coding methods, which of course, for us to understand and use, require each of them separate attention. But what it is good is to know they exist, and they are actually there as a possible choices that you can have and make, and do it in accordance with your research question and with your research design. Here, I'm going to stop dealing with the problem of challenge that allows you good data analysis, because it's important for me at this point to actually, it's important that we are actually at the same time, I would say, instructed on the idea of aligning research methods with a research design. And now I'm going to go through challenge 3, which talks about quality of conclusions. So let's say we have positioned ourselves, we know what is the research design in which we are embedding our data work. So let's say we know which data coding strategy we're going to use, and we are following those steps after we have aligned all those steps with the research design, and we have learned how to do thematic analysis, grounded theory analysis, abductive analysis. Now, when we are doing it, we need to make sure that we have created enough tools or tactics to ensure the quality of our conclusions. Okay. The term quality or the term good has so many possible meanings. And in dealing with those meanings, we can go into so many discussions because good doesn't mean same in all different epistemologies. Here, what I'm going to use as a little flavor of allowing myself to talk about quality is actually reliance on the ideas of reliability and validity, which means that it's important that in our study and in our data analysis that we make sure that we have reliability in the sense that our process of a study is consistent, stable over the time and across the researches and methods in a sense of consistency, which if we have dealt that with challenge 1 and challenge 2 in a good way, we'll actually have good base to do that. But also it's important to think about tactics, furthermore, how to ensure that. Also, we need to think about validity, which is the truth value in the sense of the credibility and authenticity of our findings. And it's important, a very important standard that allows us actually to say that our data work has been of good quality. So what we can do to think about quality of conclusions? There are so many possible guidances, and what I'm offering here is something I was inspired by Miles and Huberman as extremely fruitful analysts and teachers of data analysis, and tactics that we can use to ensure reliability, validity, and also quality in general is in a first hand, to use visual displays as a possible tool that allows us to bring together relevant data in a way that will allow us to reach good conclusions. Those visual displays can be matrices, charts, and networks, any kind of visual tool that allows us to have our data outlined in a way that it's allowing us to have neat picture. And this is something I really frequently use in my research, and very often drawing even the pictures or the tables. I sometimes draw tables because sometimes I'm describing phenomena, so I end up with a table with phenomena. But sometimes when I'm researching a process, then I'm gonna end up with a process type of visual display, which very often allows me to do meta-analysis. And what it's important with the visual displays is, for example, if you wanna present or bring together data on some phenomena, and if you are creating, for example, a table, it's important that it fits in one page that allows us to actually to have big picture, and that we can then strengthen our conclusions. This is very well used, often used tactic. Other tactics are ways of reasoning that include us seeing the patterns that emerge from the data or themes that are coming out. Sometimes they come out as clusters, sometimes they're going to come out as groups and subgroups. And the fact is that we use those tactics to generate meaning in our data. Those are the tactics that we use in our everyday life when we are making conclusions. And in a scientific reasoning, it's something that just needs to be named as a way as a way through which we have reached our conclusions. Also, we can use metaphors. Sometimes we can't, if we want to see something is more or less present in the data. But it is important that we find ways to reach conclusions by looking at the codes and data and finding patterns or the meaning that is coming out of it. And it's important, especially for the parts in which we are describing how we have reached to our conclusions, that we are using terms that are showcasing others what it is that we have been doing. For example, sometimes we're going to say that we have been using comparison in order between cases or between sources to find important dimensions of something. So this second group of tactics involves different reasoning tools. And then in the third group of tactics, I talk about revising and defining our findings. What we can do, we can assess our quality by checking representatives. Sometimes we do it by checking researchers' effects or triangulating across data methods. I often use member check workshops as an important tactic for ensuring quality by presenting preliminary findings to a group of respondents that were actually giving me that data in some kind of workshops, which then allow me to actually get the feedback on how much or how close or how far I was to what it is that they were thinking when they were talking about the phenomena I was researching. Also, different kinds of check, like intra-code reliability, inter-code reliability is something we use here to ensure the quality. And of course, any kind of feedback from informants is something that allows us to think about quality. So, to summarize, visual displays to help us get a good picture and actually generate our meaning conclusions. Then tactics which are allowing us to see patterns and themes. And then tactics that are allowing us to do revisions and actually to make sure that we have reliable findings. And those are possible roads that we can take when thinking about the quality of our findings and the meanings that we're going to create. And finally, let's deal with the challenge number 4, which is the challenge in which, after we have positioned ourselves, we did a great coding, we came up with really good conclusions and findings, how we do then proceed by connecting with the relevant audience. And here, it's important to actually know that we have different types of audience when we are writing our papers, when we are doing our research. First audience, of course, are ourselves and our co-authors, in a sense, that it's really important for us to know what it is that we were doing all the time, and that we are able to reflect on our analytical steps and ways in which we can improve them. So we are audience for ourselves, in a sense of us logging and remembering what it is that we were doing. Second audience are the readers and reviewers of a research report. Reviewers are and the editors are, of course, special types of second audience. In a sense, it's important always to make sure that our methodology in the paper reads well, and then it explains well what it is that we were doing. But at the same time, audience as a readers of our research report, they need to know what it is that we did, but also we have to be able to effectively communicate our findings. For qualitative research, we now deal with a situation in which papers needs to be as a possibility often is are different types of methodological supplements which are allowing us to describe our data coding methods. What it is that I want to here emphasize the most is the fact that we think about methods in a qualitative papers that are based on qualitative research in different aspects of our paper. For example, we do mention methods in an abstract. If it's important, we can also mention it in a title, if it's something that is really important. We do mention it in an introduction of our paper, in a sense of announcing what it is that we're going to do. And then we have methodological section, which really needs to explain both research design and data collection, but also lately it's really, really important that we are able to spell out what were the steps of our data analysis. And here we are resorting to solutions we have made while dealing with the challenge number 1 and number 2. So if we choose to use thematic analysis, then we can actually use steps that are usually aligned with it. If we have used qualitative content analysis, then the qualitative methodological section will actually outline the way we were doing it. So in that sense, answering or finding good solutions to previous challenges will allow us to actually have good methodological sections. And then, of course, in making convincing case, in a sense of presenting our findings in most effective way, lately we can be as innovative as possible. Important here is to think about what to do with the quotes as a really important element of something that we use when we write. And lately there's been a lot of debate or discussion on, is it good to have quotes as a part of findings, or is it better to actually have them as a separate line of findings, or even appendices which are illustrating what it is that we want to say. What I'm recently using more and more is tables in which are presenting summary of findings and then illustrating them with the quotes. But of course, it all depends on what it is, who is our audience, and what is some kind of primary guidelines of a paper or the journal that we are publishing our paper at. And here, I'm going to start with my monologue, I would say, in a sense of talking about challenges. And I'm just going to summarize quickly. In the last 45 minutes, I was explaining or talking about 4 core challenges that we have or deal with when doing our research. It is the challenge of positioning our research, the challenge of doing data coding, in a sense of managing it as a process, the challenge of ensuring quality, and challenge of writing. In each of these challenges, there are different sets of solutions, but most importantly, it's important that when dealing with each of them, we find out what it is that qualitative methodology is offering us as a possible route for answer, and then make reflective choice there. So thank you for your attention and for your interest, of course. And what I'm now doing, I'm definitely opening up the floor for questions and answers as a part of our webinar today. And of course, inviting you all to browse the MethodsNET Summer School website, where you can see different roads toward the answers to challenges I was talking about. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to open Q&A I'm going to open Q&A part of our session, in which you are more than welcome to write any kind of issues that you were dealing with or that you had while looking at me or looking at the presentation or listening to me. So I'm going to start. I'm going to answer live first question in which I have a question in which it asks, it says on the website that a little prior experience with so I'm answering live. It's that a little prior experience with the QDA software is required for the course Qualitative Data Analysis Methods workshop. And the person is asking if it's possible to be at the course with no knowledge on QDA software, and I can say yes, absolutely. So the course Qualitative Data Analysis Methods workshops that will take place in person in Vienna, not Budapest, in Vienna, and it will be all-day workshop, will actually be fully designed to allow participants to fully engage without prior knowledge of QDA software. And at the beginning of the course, we're gonna, for those who don't have software, we're gonna use trial version of NVivo, and the course will be connected with a little tutorials how to use software from the beginning. So yes, answer here is yes, there is no need to actually know any QDA software before engaging there. And also I have a question from Ilkor, who asks about the combination of strategies. So I'm going to also answer that question live. And I'm going to read the question first. As you know, many scholars describe qualitative research as an art form, such as dancing with the data, bricolage, and other creative processes, where researchers take on role of artists. With this perspective in mind, what are the thoughts on using combination of different coding strategies based on researchers' preferences? Yes, we can merge. We can use hybrids. What it is important that when we do that, we do it cautiously, in a sense that we are not making combination that doesn't work together. For example, we can combine thematic analysis with qualitative content analysis, but it's important, or sometimes it's absolutely okay to combine grounded theory with thematic analysis. Sometimes we can do it in sequence, sometimes we can do merging. But what it's important is that we are able, as you just said, to create a dance, but here to design the process that fits well your research design question, and then to see, okay, now I'm going to do, for example, inductive research, which is so inductive that I'm going to go with a grounded theory as my process. But at some point, I'm going to reach the situation in which I have enough conclusions or enough findings in which I want to do another analysis of another case, and then I actually can go toward the thematic analysis as a method that I'm going to embed to the findings or to data analysis that was done by the grounded theory. So yes, it's possible to combine them, but at the same time, it's important to be cautious while doing it, in a sense of that sometimes there are some elements into data analysis process we just cannot fit together. I'm going to give you one example now. Qualitative content analysis is very specific data analysis method. Why? Because it's a method that kind of restricts the number of times in which you can code one data unit. For example, you have a statement on some phenomena, and qualitative content analysis tells you you cannot code this statement many times, and you cannot code it to different subcodes or different categories, because there are reasons for that. Because at the end, you want to have descriptions which are well structured and elements which are well delineated from each other. But because of such coding, it's later on hard to do cross analysis. In a sense, it's not easy to look at possibility of some meanings becoming or showing several times in one data unit. In thematic analysis, you often want to code one statement in as many codes as you can in order for you to see what comes with what very often. And because of these different strategies, it's not easy to connect necessarily these two strategies in a sense, especially if you want to end up with finding relations between some statements. Okay, what I'm saying now is the answer is very, I would say, deep dive into different types, two types of data analysis methods. But what I want to emphasize, it's important to know enough about methods and ways to combine them, and then definitely it will be nice and creative work to engage in coding strategy, which are mixed and hybrid. So I'm gonna also mark this question as being answered. At this point, I see no more open questions, so I'm gonna even stop sharing the screen. And what I'm gonna do at the end is to thank you for your patience. Thank you for your interest, and I'm gonna invite you all to look at the website of summer school. Two courses that I am offering are one in-person course taking place in Vienna itself, and it's very deep and intensive course on qualitative data analysis. And before that, in a week before the physical part of the school starts, I'm also offering the course on coding in a more simple manner, and it's a warm-up course for introductory type of, I would say, entrance to data analysis. And to be honest, both courses can be even combined in a role. So thank you very much. And by email, you're gonna also receive recording of the webinar. Bye-bye, and have a great work with the data coding.